Of Read About It is made possible in part by a grant from Cox Communications of Oklahoma City, proud sponsor of this effort to promote reading, education, and literacy in our community. The following public service program is brought to you by the Metropolitan Library System. And now, Read About It with your host, B.J. Williams.
A great show for you today, including interviews with two local authors. Bob Burke will be telling us about his latest book, and Hiram K. Myers will be telling us about In Pursuit of the Speckled Gumball. But first, Ruby Soutier and Julia Mott are going to tell us about a great cookbook.
Hello, today we're going to talk about the Book Lover's Cookbook by Shonda Winger and Janet Jensen. And one of the things that of course I like about this book is that it doesn't have any illustrations, and I like no illustrations in cookbooks if I'm going to try some recipes because my food never looks like the illustration. The neat thing about this cookbook is that they take food that is actually featured in books and then they develop recipes. And one of the things that I tried was called a sugar-topped tea cake. And it is made with apples and applesauce and walnuts, and it was very tasty. It was based on a tea cake that they had in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I believe you also tried a cake from this cookbook.
I did, and I brought it here today. This is Pig's Chocolate Swirl Fudge Cake, inspired by the book Pig and Crow by Kay Trejo. I also tried the popovers that I believe you tried too.
I did. And I thought the popovers were pretty good. I mean, they were just basic popovers. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I tried was the ginger snaps, which were based on the fact that they ate ginger snaps and sugar cookies in Centennial by James Michener. And the thing to remember about ginger snaps is that they are filled with lots of ginger and they're fairly hard, which I guess is the snap that you get when you bite into them.
Well, one of the things I will say about this cookbook is that I think this is a great cookbook for browsing and looking at what foods correspond with what books. But I do think this is a cookbook not for beginners, because I think that the recipes leave out some of the information. For example, in the chocolate cake it said pour batter into prepared pan, but it didn't tell you how to prepare the pan. You just had to know that on your own. It also, when there was things that had to be reserved to use later in the recipe, it didn't specifically point that out, so you just had to catch it on your own. It was not the easiest cookbook to use, but it's lots of fun to look at.
It is. It's a great browser cookbook, and I do agree with you on that, because it's like the different recipes, some of them were done by the authors of the books they came from, some of them were done by the author of this book. And this is called the Book Lover's Cookbook, and it is available at your public library and perhaps at your local bookstore.
I had an opportunity to talk with Bob Burke. He's a local attorney and a very well-known author. He has been on Read About It any number of times. I think he's one of the most prolific authors writing about Oklahoma around today. His latest book is about the investigation into the Murrah bombing. I think you'll enjoy what Bob had to say about Simple Truth. Bob, I usually ask what inspired you to write the book, but Simple Truths, I think, which is about the investigation of the Murrah bombing, that's pretty obvious, so I'll ask, how did you get involved in this?
Well, actually, a federal judge sent a retired FBI agent to me who said, look, and ends up being a co-author of the book, John Hersley, who said, from day one of the bombing investigation, led this investigation, sat at the counsel table during the federal trials, and I would like a story to be written about the bombing investigation, which became the largest criminal investigation in history. And I thought that would be a wonderful project to preserve history. So for 3 years, I pored over 30,000 or the documents, thousands of documents in the 30,000 interviews which the FBI conducted during the investigation, looking to see who was responsible for the bombing of the Murrah building in 1995.
And so you were the one who, I guess, brought a little bit of coherence to all of this information?
I think so. Obviously, I didn't know a lot about the investigation, knew what I read in the newspapers, but my co-authors, John Hursley and Larry Tongate, both retired FBI agents, were the two primary case agents for this investigation. They lived and breathed that for a long time, from day one of the investigation following the bombing and certainly through the federal trials in Denver, both testified in the state trial. But they had all this incredible knowledge, and I simply put it together, put it in a format that is easy to read, that I believe proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that only Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols were involved in this, what became the largest and most horrific act of domestic terrorism in American history.
Now, you waited purposely until after the Nichols trial was over before you brought the book out.
Being able to review all the documents of the FBI, my agreement with the FBI was to not ever interfere with the state trial of Terry Nichols. So this book was released recently, and that happened to be 2 months after the Terry Nichols trial was over. We just didn't want to interfere.
Now, the two FBI agents, did you spend a lot of time talking with them?
Oh yes, oh yes. We've become great friends. These are two men who served their country very well, and 30 years with the FBI, are just wonderful gentlemen who, as I say, have lived and breathed this case for a decade now.
So now, how did you set up the book? Did you go chronologically and just start with the bombing and then go through?
Well, the book is not about the victims. It is not about the trials. It's simply about the FBI investigation. However, the prologue does tell some of the horrific stories of people being killed and maimed to set the stage for the investigation. The second chapter is called The Investigation Begins. And then it traces when the FBI finds out about the axle that appears in front of the apartment building across the street from the Murrah building, just within hours. It's a fascinating story of how that computers helped the FBI determine that that's a Ford truck axle, that it was owned by the Ryder Company truck. A quick call by the FBI in Miami, Florida to Ryder headquarters finds out that it was rented the day before, or 2 days before, at Elliott's Body Shop in Junction City, Kansas. And then FBI agents fan out from Junction City, Kansas, and it's fascinating to me because they're looking for someone who has seen someone with a Ryder truck. They go in the circle around Elliott's Body Shop, and 4.7 miles out, there is the Dreamland Motel, who the lady says, yes, there was a guy who was kind of strange acting who was here. And he did have a Ryder truck. He was in room 25. I didn't trust him. I wanted to put him there where I could see him. And sure enough, they go to the registration card, Timothy McVeigh. Yet 4.7 miles away at Elliott's Body Shop, he had rented the Ryder truck, which was used for the bomb, was rented in the name of Robert Kling from South Dakota. Of course, he used a Michigan address that turns out to be Terry Nichols' address, his home address. So I think that you can connect the dots by this book, by here is this piece of evidence, and no question. The last chapter, BJ, is called Was Anyone Else Involved? Because from the beginning, with the publication of the photographs of John Doe number 1 and John Doe number 2, we as Americans, I believe, wanted there to be a Middle Eastern conspiracy. We didn't want to think that two short-haired Army veterans clean-shaven Army veterans from Kansas could do this to us as a people. We wanted there to be a foreign connection. But I believe as a lawyer and as a historian, there's no question that all the evidence points that only McVeigh and Nichols were involved.
I think also in that desire to believe is that it's very hard to believe that just two people could do that.
Yes, and I addressed that issue. Frankly, one person could have done this. You had 80 bags of 50-pound bags of fertilizer. One man could have done that, could have mixed that with the racing fuel. Two people were more than enough.
Yeah. So very factual, start to finish, and it has, in some respects, a very wonderful conclusion, I think.
Well, it does, because I think justice was accomplished. And also, I might mention that former Governor Frank Keating has written a powerful foreword to the book. In that foreword, he says that this closes the book on this case, and that it's a book that needs to be written. But it's Frank Keating's best piece of writing, I believe, is the foreword to this book.
Well, he had a unique perspective in having been he was the governor, but he'd also been on the let's hunt them down and get them
That's true.
side
Well,
of
yes,
the
because he had
story.
been a former FBI agent, and I think that he was a splendid spokesman for Oklahoma at the time. I think he made Oklahoma look very good during that time, and was close to it, and he was one of our proofreaders, and I think is satisfied with the conclusions in the book.
Well, it's a great book, and it's available everywhere, isn't it?
It should be everywhere.
It should
Okay.
be everywhere. I want to thank you very much, Bob, and I'll say you're going to be on again next month.
Oh, we
aren't
have
you?
lots of books coming out, so thank you for the opportunity to talk about this one.
Thanks. Bob Burke has been here telling us about Simple Truths. You can find it at your bookstore and your favorite library.
I know it is wet, and the sun is not sunny.
Hi, my name is Jose Jimenez of your Metropolitan Library Commission. You know, most experts tell us that if you just spend 20 minutes a day reading to your child, you're not only building a bond that lasts a lifetime, but you're also preparing that child to learn how to read. Check with the experts at your Metropolitan Library for suggestions on just the right books for you and your family. And visit us at our website at www.metrolibrary.org.
With me now is Doug Benton, and Doug, it looks like you've got something besides a book with you today.
I do, and it's not a movie either.
Oh, really?
Whoa, how about that? I figure, what's the use of having this glorious job if I can't come on every once in a while and talk about something that I'm really interested in, one of my passions, and that is music of the 1920s.
Oh, really?
Hot jazz. I am a aficionado of that style of music. The first jazz recordings came out in 1917, a group called the Original Dixieland Jazz Band. And there were just 5 of these guys. But by the early 20s, recording studios were thinking, you know, if we could jazz up some of the dance numbers that we do, then we could make more sales. So a lot of bands were formed that took the standard dance songs of the day and heated them up quite a bit. And one of these bands was called the California Ramblers. And they formed in 1921. They were all New York musicians, but they called themselves California because that was kind of exotic.
Even
there were bands called the Arkansas Travelers and the Tennessee Tutors. They were all in New York. But the music was considered more cutting edge if it wasn't New York.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why.
But
That's how
California?
people thought. Yeah, even California.
Okay,
California.
okay.
So these guys, they were a dance band. There were 9 of them. And some of the members came and went over the years, so it wasn't always the same lineup. But this CD of their music between 1925 and 1928 has some of the big names of a later type of music, swing, that came along in the 30s. I've got a little piece of one of the recordings that we'll play, but Red Nichols is playing the trumpet here. Tommy Dorsey is on trombone. Jimmy Dorsey is on the clarinet. Adrian Rollini is playing both piano and alto sax. I would love to have seen that because he had to run from place to place.
Oh, he didn't do them both
in
at
order
the same
to keep
time?
going. No, you can't play the piano and the sax at the same time. Try though you might. So let's listen to a little bit of a song called Everything is Hotsy Totsy Now.
Okay.
Hi, David. Thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
You've chosen to review a classic children's book,
That's right.
Where the Wild Things Are. Why would you choose this book?
Well, I think because to get people to read, you have to get early. So I figured why not choose a children's book, because if you get them young, then it's going to stick with them.
Right, that's true. You start them from birth, they'll just keep
Yeah.
reading. Yeah. What did you like about this book?
I like, well, it's a book about monsters.
Right.
That's always a big plus. But I just thought it had a good story. The boy and dealing with personal problems, his mother, love, that stuff.
Right. And it has a lot of themes that children
Oh yeah.
relate to.
Yeah, getting grounded.
Right. Why don't you tell us, since we're on the subject, a little bit about the plot of the story?
Well, basically the story is the young boy Max likes to get in trouble, basically. So his mom sends him to his room with no supper. So he uses his imagination and goes to the land of where the wild things are. And
this land is a land of beasts and
Yeah.
monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, the end of the story is.
well, he I guess acts like his mother and disciplines the monsters, the wild things, and then he smells his supper, so he travels back home and eats his supper.
Yeah, and I think it ends with the classic line, "And it was still hot."
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great. So it's really. What do you think are the main themes in this book?
Well, mainly I see a love. The love of the mother, love of the son for the mother. Responsibility is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be the major point of the book. Whether the responsibility of the mother, the responsibility of Max, the main character. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and love, like you said earlier.
Yeah, those are important things you want to instill in a young child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the illustrations, did you like the illustrations?
Those are the great. Those are classic. Those
Yeah.
are ideas you have forever.
Right, they are really classic illustrations. And I had read somewhere that Maurice Sendak drew those based on relatives, because when he was little he would see relatives and they would have like hair coming out of their nose, and so he drew the wild things based on. Can you see that in the illustrations?
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
I see those as just people in my family.
Right. Okay, well, I'm so glad you came and reintroduced us to this wonderful book.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much, David. It was great.
That was Heidi Daniel Morgan from the Metropolitan Library System, and one of our teen volunteers this summer in our summer reading program, David Clevenger. Now I have Hiram K. Myers. He is an Oklahoma attorney, and he has written 2 books. This is actually In Pursuit of the Speckled Gumball is actually the second book you've written, but it's the first one to be published.
That's correct. The other one was finished first.
Now, this is a memoir, which is a look back at your childhood. I know you said earlier that it was truthful, but a lot of the dialogue you sort of had to make up because you didn't remember it exactly.
Well, I think that most biographies have a certain amount of fiction in them, because you have to fictionalize the dialogue. You have no recollection or record of that exact conversation, so you have to kind of, in honesty, you have to fill it in so that emotionally it's honest, and it's honest as far as the circumstance are concerned. So yes, that part of it, of course, is fiction.
Now, this is a look back at your early years up through your finishing your tour in the Navy, and it actually starts before you were aware of a great deal. You start with your mother's pregnancy, which was a difficult one, so I'm assuming you did a lot of research before you started on
Well,
this.
actually, that particular story was told to me so many times.
Oh.
About how lucky I was to be alive, and it certainly made me aware, because as you know from reading the book, BJ, in the 7th month of my mother's pregnancy, her appendix ruptured, and the doctor that was taking care of her was my step-grandfather, and of course the protrudence of her stomach would prevent the opening where he took the appendix out from healing. So she laid with her stomach open and had gangrene. And that's the way the last 2 months of her pregnancy were, and we both survived.
Well, I remember when I opened the book, started reading, I got into this, and I thought, how is it possible that he's here to write about this? Because that is really a ghastly story.
It is, and back in those days, of course, she was not in the hospital at the time. She was laying in an office when he did the operation, and then she was put over in her own bed, but her mother took care of her. There was no nursing, and all he was doing was every day he was cleaning her stomach out with sulfur and sulfur-soaked rags, and that's the way she survived that. So it was, and of course she said, of course the joke in the book is, and about that particular incident as well, is that he had just put an intrauterine device in her just 9 months before that, and told her that she would then be protected from pregnancy, and of course
it didn't work.
I immediately, I showed up.
Right. Well, sometimes life plays little tricks on us, but that was not the only trick that life played on you, which I think you depict very well. You had a very, very difficult childhood.
I think the theme of the book, BJ, is the conflict and the dysfunction that arose from my father's alcoholism. He was always drinking and chasing women, and my mother was always chasing my dad, which left little time for the children. And so my sister, who was 6 years older than I, was kind of saddled with taking care of me. And that was okay while she was, before she wanted to get out and
do her own thing.
Stretch her wings.
Right.
But when she had a little brother tagging along at that time, she became resentful, and then there was a lot of conflict. So we had a rough time, and I read an article about 20 years ago in Newsweek magazine about the children of alcoholic and how they carry the baggage the rest of their lives and never fully recover. And I decided at that time, at that time had spent much money and much energy and time dealing with this baggage that I was carrying, and I thought I was going to try to get rid of it by writing. And I think that writing has been a cathartic experience. It's been therapeutic and has helped me a great deal.
Now, you mentioned in the foreword again that you talked with your sister quite a bit, and that obviously she remembered things from an entirely different perspective, but I'm assuming that there was did something good come out of your ability to talk about that?
Well, yes, some good and some bad. I mean, she was 6 years my senior, and she left when I was 11 years old, and the situation got much worse when she left, and I was really alone at that time, and the dog that I had that was my good companion, he ended up missing, and at a time when the house where we had been living was sold, and everything had gone to hell, so to speak, in one fell swoop. So that there was a period of time from 11 until 16 when I was really alone. And then my parents then, at that time, bought up a tavern of all things, of course.
Well, hey.
Alcoholic with a tavern, what more can you ask?
Right.
And then they both had to work, and they worked until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and so I was home alone all of the time during that 5-year period, and it had lifelong repercussions. And I was hoping that by writing this book that it would not only be therapeutic for me, but it would help other adults who are trying to deal with that same kind of trauma. And it's a heavy subject, and I have a review that was just written by a local attorney by the name of Rex Travers, and it was published in the in Book Notes, which is an adjunct of the Oklahoma Bar Journal. And he said in there that it's a book that should be read by all parents who have troubled children, because there's a bit of a hope involved in it, in regard to the tragedy and the conflict that is always there and that interferes with everything you do. But despite all of that, you can survive. And that's the story.
Well, I think you make it very clear that there was a lot of, I think, grit and determination on your part to get through it, but you also met some adults that were willing to extend the hand of friendship or community with you that helped, in spite of the fact of the vast number of adults you met that seemed bent on putting you down.
First of all, I want to say that the book is wonderful for teachers as well, because it gives teachers an idea of either what a positive or a detrimental influence they can have in a child's life. I had two teachers, a music teacher when I was in the 7th grade that took me off the streets of Detroit and kept me out of the gangs. And then I had an English teacher in the 10th grade who saved me at a time when she could have exposed me for one of the things that I did, one of the wild things that I did, and she could have had me expelled, and she didn't. So she was very, very, very influential.
And people are going to have to read the book to find out more about that. It is In Pursuit of the Speckled Gumball. You can find out more about the book and Mr. Myers at his website at www. And I'm going to have to read this here, HiramMyers.com.
Hi, I'm Donna Morris, Executive Director of your Metropolitan Library System. You know, experts tell us it's never too early to begin reading to a child. If you spend just 20 minutes a day reading to a child, you're not only building a bond that lasts a lifetime, but you're helping that child to prepare to learn how to read. Visit us at the Metropolitan Library System and let us help you select just the right books for you and your family. And be sure and visit our website at www.metrolibrary.org.
Well, it's time for the Writer's Almanac, and I'd be willing to bet actual money, Doug, that you have a date for us.
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
No,
Pay
you
me.
don't.
October, whoa, I just hit the lamp. October marks the 100th anniversary of the birth of Graham Greene. Not the actor, the English novelist. Greene kind of, to me, he seemed to have grown out of Joseph Conrad. Maybe that's because so many of his books are set in exotic locations. He was very concerned with moral questions in his book. He converted to Catholicism at one point in his life. And he frequently dealt with questions of failed faith and what do you do to replace faith that's dying in his books. But he's also well known for what he called his entertainments, which tended to be spy stories and kind of low-grade thrillers. Our Man in Havana, the Third Man, most notably, which was written for the movies. Anyway, happy birthday, Graham Greene.
Okay, thank you, Doug. And remember, you can check out Graham Greene books and biographies at www.metrolibrary.org. You can find out about that and many, many more things. Check us out. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again next time.